The Kremlin has declined to confirm or deny US reports of a phone call between Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. US media say the two discussed the war in Ukraine. It would be the first direct communication between Putin and a US president since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Trump claims to have a concrete plan for ending the conflict and says he'll likely hold talks with Ukraine's president next week. Well, for more, let's speak to Fabrice Pothier, CEO at Rasmussen Global, an international political consultancy firm. He joins us from Madrid in Spain. Fabrice, great to have you on the show. So Donald Trump says he's actually spoken with Vladimir Putin. Do you take him for his word?
Well, I will not comment on that, but I won't be surprised indeed that Donald Trump and his administration have made some contacts with the Russians. The question is to say what and to discuss what, and especially to impress what kind of leverage on Vladimir Putin, which clearly, if you look at the dynamic on the front line in Ukraine, is not really changing his posture.
Now, Trump and Putin met occasionally during Trump's first presidential term. How would you characterize their relationship?
Well, it's a kind of strongman dynamic. The same that Putin had with Xi Jinping and also with the leader of North Korea. I think Trump likes to associate himself with this strong man. The question is, what is he going to defend? Is he going to defend his own interest, or is he also going to defend the US and the transatlantic interest vis-à-vis Putin, who is clearly set on undermining those?
All right, well, let's go to the topic of Ukraine. You mentioned it before. Trump has promised to end the war in Ukraine. We heard it in the campaign for the presidency. What do we know about how he would do that?
Well, we don't know much yet, and we don't even know if they have a plan yet. I think there are some interesting instincts, which we know since probably half a year, talking to members of his inner foreign policy team. One is that we need to end this war, which I think is an important instinct and an important notion that was not really that strong or that central before. And second, we need to invest or inject some leverage, some pressure, so that the parties, especially the Russians, will be willing to make compromises and be willing to go for peace rather than continue with war. We have not seen that leverage yet. Trump has talked about sanctions and possible tariff against Russia if Putin were not to play a game on going for a peace agreement. But I think Putin never takes words seriously. He only takes actions, and strong actions, seriously.
All right, but if there is a level of compromise, we'll say, from Russia and Ukraine, how would you see that? In what direction would that go, or what would you expect that compromise to look like?
Well, I can't really obviously talk about compromise on behalf of the government of Ukraine. What I can tell you is that key to them making the hard, difficult compromises that always come with a peace agreement, key to that is for them to have the guarantee that a sovereign and independent Ukraine will remain post-war. So this is where it falls on both the Europeans, but also the Americans, to provide their ally and partner Ukraine the sort of guarantees that this won't happen again. And if it were to happen again, if Putin were to try again, because he tried twice, why would he not try a third time? There will be enough support and enough mutual defense to actually protect and defend a sovereign, independent Ukraine. That's the key to any compromise for the Ukrainians.
OK, we'll leave it there. Fabrice Pothier, CEO at Rasmussen Global, thank you for joining us today.
I'm joined now by Marie Mendras, author of the book Permanent War, Ultimate Strategy of the Kremlin. She's also a professor of political science at Sciences Po University in Paris. A Kremlin spokesman has said that communications between Washington and Moscow are emerging through different channels. What's meant by that?
Well, I think it's really a game of liars. I mean, both the Trump administration and Putin's Kremlin only communicate with lies, with hints and counter lies. So basically what the Kremlin is responding to Trump's assertion that that there was a conversation, that there will be a talk next week, shows how much Vladimir Putin just doesn't take President Trump seriously. I think it is a message to the U.S. administration that Putin is not ready for any sincere talks about ending the war that he has started, and it's a little embarrassing for Donald Trump to keep saying that he has great relations with Putin, with whom he's always had very bad relations, especially during his first term. So it's very bad communicating from the White House.
Picking up on that last point you make, what about the fact that Ukraine seems to be left out of the picture here? Zelensky says excluding Ukraine from these talks, whatever talks are going on between the US and Russia, or any future talks, is dangerous, and has asked for more participation. I mean, isn't that a given that Ukraine would have to be at the table?
Of course. I mean, of course. But Trump and Putin are not talking. This is the point. Everybody has been disinformed by the New York Post, which is 100% Trump media, right? So the situation, the facts are the following, is that Putin is not in a hurry. Zelensky is more under pressure to start some kind of talks about how to end the Russian aggression and Russian bombing of Ukraine. And Donald Trump has been communicating with Volodymyr Zelensky much more often than with Vladimir Putin. And the last offer by Zelensky to Trump, and confirmed by Trump to Zelensky recently, was the possibility of a deal, because Trump only takes deals. And the deal is that the US might be able to exploit the rare earth minerals in Ukraine. Ukraine is very rich in minerals, so that the US can continue to support the military effort of Ukraine, which means that it's very likely that Donald Trump will continue to allow arms shipments to Ukraine. I don't think Putin has much to win from that. So in this battle of words and of diplomacy, the loser at this stage is Vladimir Putin.
At the end of the day, what you're saying here then is this war is going to go on much longer than any sort of hopes there may be of talks going ahead.
Nobody who follows closely the war and the situation in Kiev, in Moscow, and in Western countries believes seriously that there could be an opening of talks with Moscow at this stage. The important thing is to continue to arm Ukraine, support Ukraine, so that they can, in a few months, hopefully, put more pressure on the Russian army and start what might be a long process of talks with Moscow, but from a position of force rather than a position of weakness. And because this Trump insane unpredictability of US positions now, in a way, might be coming to a halt, that is where Trump will have to probably make a decision to continue to support Ukraine, that may be the timeline. Now, it could be a few months. It can be longer, because nobody is in a position to predict what Vladimir Putin will do. We know that his military commanders, that most of the team around him did not want this war 3 years ago and would be very happy to send their boys home. But Putin sees it differently because he's very afraid of losing power.
Intriguing stuff from behind the scenes. Professor of Political Science, Marie Mendras, thank you very much for being on DW.
Thank you.